Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti. This year, 2020, is a year in which you can look at it in more ways than one. Because I think everybody wants to get past this year as soon as possible, thanks to coronavirus and the impact it has had on the global life of every single individual, rich, poor, young, old, belonging to any religion, belonging to any caste, belonging to any creed. We are all affected very, very severely. And I think I would like to forget this year as soon as possible. I would probably erase this year from my calendar, although we can't technically. But this year also has a very important event happening, is the US elections in a couple of weeks from now. And the matter is getting really, really anxious because people do not know what to expect. So that is the point which is very important. We also want to touch upon the fact of Kamala Harris becoming the vice presidential candidate for Mr. Donald Trump, for Joe Biden. How does she help the candidature of Mr. Biden? Or is it one of those classic political play? There is a definite excitement in India. The name Kamala, makes all Indians very excited of Indian descent. And particularly important it is that she doesn't owe anything to India. She doesn't claim to be a Hindu. She's very proud of her Black heritage, and it is her right to be what she is. But are we becoming too emotional, mushy to say that our first Indian American to be nominated for vice president candidate? They are very important issues because her pronouncements with reference to India makes a lot of difference. We will also talk about Hindu way of life. Are Hindus remaining relevant in the global dialogue, or are we becoming, or are we facing a threat of our own kind by not being part of that conversation? And this relates to also the fact that today, not today, 2 days ago, I think 2 days ago, yes, Mr. Trump brought about a historic agreement between UAE and Israel for establishing full diplomatic relationship, which is a remarkable breakthrough. I mean, people might say whatever they might say about Donald Trump, but I think history will judge him more kindly than what people are doing right now. To discuss this all these matters, I have great pleasure in welcoming Mr. Sattology, as I prefer to call him, Aditya Satsangi. Aditya Satsangi is a remarkable guy. Welcome to the show, Aditya-ji. He's a remarkable human, great person. He's a founder of an entity called Sattology, which is a derivative of Satya to Sattology, just as, many things are a word derived to prove that Hindus' way of life is not mythology. It is based on truth and facts. And I have read his book, Sattology, and I encourage people to read that book because there is an element of understanding things. We intuitively, we know everything, but we have to know it from fact-based and truth-based. So Sattology teaches us that, and he's very active in US political life. And I thought it would be great to have him come over to the show. So welcome, Aditya-ji, once again. And share your thoughts on two things. One is Kamala Harris, for example. I mean, she's a fabulous woman, great orator, gutsy fighter, has a very charming personality. I remember when she won the California Attorney General's position, President Barack Obama said, "Oh, she's a good-looking woman." And it's on record. It's not my imagination. So she is an attractive person and has a great charm about her. What does she bring to the Biden ticket? Because I knew that she will be the wonderful candidate because other potential candidates did not have that solid profile other than Elizabeth Warren. So I want you to share your impressions about Kamala Harris, Hindu, Christian, black, brown, but she has claimed her black heritage. She's not talking about her naturally tanned impression. She's talking about the black heritage. That's what her political life is all about, talked about as a black. So why, if you are a black, then you are not Indian? So share with us your thought on that, Aditya.
Namaskar, and I'm also the president and founder of Americans for Hindus, which is a very prominent, now growing organization in the US. You have asked me very important questions, which are very pertinent to the future of American Hindus in the political landscape of USA. No longer does the Indian American cliche, I call it a cliche, work in North America today, because when you calculate American Hindus come from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and other countries, many other countries, Fiji, Caribbean, and Jamaica, Guyana. And whereas this lady, Kamala Harris, also comes from Caribbean. Her mother is a Hindu, and her father is a Jamaican of African descent. And needless to say that these are the Hindus who migrated from India many hundreds of years back, as brought by the British for the former British colonies. Now, when this lady and her family, 2 generations back, they have a dual citizenships, and they moved to USA, and she completed, her sister is Maya, and then she completed her studies and everything else. They never claimed to be of Indian descent. They're shy of that. They claim themselves to be of African descent, and they have a right to do that because their father is African. And I do not understand why Indian Americans are celebrating. I don't think so. American Hindus are celebrating because they know where she comes from. And in her past record in the presidential debates with Tulsi Gabbard already pointed out the list of corruption that she had as an attorney general in California. And how she rose to that position cannot be described in a civil society. It was almost like money for something else and position for something else. So her career and her initial growth to public position is filled with scandals, to say the least. And when she got elected to Senate in 2016, and after that also we have seen plenty of statements of hers for or against the Kashmir issue and also other issues like CAA. And she has also she has tried to be seen as a very pro African American candidate. But if you look at her record, she has done very little even for that also. So that is my opinion about her based on what I've read about her.
The important part here is, I mean, there is a, we do not know anything for a fact or a truth right now. But what we do know is the reality of the fact that what we can see and speculate on that. So, only Biden is a comeback man to win the nomination of the Democratic Party, and he's going to be that. He is a very weak candidate because he has nothing new to show or new to say. After being 50 years in the Senate, in the US government, if he still talks about inefficiency or insufficiency of the government and what has not happened for the blacks and minorities, you are responsible for it, Mr. Biden. You have to account for it. So 50 years of being in the government in one form or the other, with Senate judiciary committees and all that, he can't hide his record. And in reality, other than supporting certain legislations, I don't see anything stellar in his senatorial record, other than the fact that he hasn't made money while he was Senate. He ranks way below, from the bottom, he ranks about 5 or 6 steps ahead in terms of his wealth generated out of political part of it. But Burisma is another story, Ukraine is another story, China is another story. But the issue here is Biden capable of beating Trump, who upset every apple cart in 2016. So the question here is, Vice President Kamala Harris, Vice President candidate Kamala Harris, does she enable the ticket in a more powerful way?
A great point, and the answer is strictly no. And there are many reasons for that. One of the first reasons is that Kamala Harris now confuses Joe Biden's all the gains he had made by pleasing Muslims in the Engaged Pact. Most of the Muslims are not going to vote for Kamala Harris because they think she is Hindu. So Islamic groups are very much against Hinduism, most of them. And I have to say it openly because we are the ones who are suffering. We should be calling ourselves victims rather than they calling themselves victims. And secondly, he's going to lose on Indians because Kamala Harris, so all the Indian Americans who are very happy about Kamala Harris, actually they'll be not vote for Joe Biden now because they know Kamala Harris doesn't call herself Indian. So Joe Biden loses on both sides for two principal communities that he was targeting with Kamala Harris. Africans he loses. She has not done a single thing about African Americans, whether it's in California or anywhere else as a senator. She has not done anything. List me any legislation she has passed in the Senate, and I'll give you credit for that if you can find any which she has worked for them. And another thing about the Kamala Harris nomination is she has been a rabid anti-India, but because she is from an Indian mother, the Muslims are going to en masse boycott this election. At least 30% of 1 million votes that he was promised, I would say that he would, in any way, he was getting only 100,000, 200,000, but now even 30% of that goes away. So Biden campaign is in a worse situation with this pick now. Actually, I was hoping he would be picking up Elizabeth Warren or somebody else. Tulsi Gabbard would have done better for him.
That's a fabulous observation you have made about the recent past. Mr. Biden went ahead and made pompous statement about that Islam should be taught in the schools and colleges and whatever, and that I had wished we had known more about the peaceful. And he also quoted certain verses and used words. Peace be upon us is a classic Sharia word that he used in his utterances. And I was totally surprised that where is the neutrality of a presidential candidate when he embraces something like that. However, it's important that you said that he might lose, because I have another theory on this. My theory is that Biden's health is not the best of all the candidates. He's 77, 78, going to be 79 in January when the presidential results are out. I have a feeling, and I was happy about this. I said this 3 weeks ago, and now CNN and New York Times, they're all talking about the fact that Biden may cede his position to Kamala Harris. And I say that within 2 years of his presidency, he will quit on health grounds. And that will usher in the first ever woman to be the president of America, who will have 2 years of a term to solidify next 4 years of campaigning. And that's how you bring back Obama legacy back again. So I feel, because he is not going to be a two-term president. He won't have the strength to fight the second term of the election, even if he were to win one. I have a feeling that American people, for these reasons, as you alluded, the Muslim voter will have a real challenge to decide. It's a funny situation. You vote in Biden and you run into having probably a Hindu candidate.
Actually, they started Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, that's right. And we do not know how Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren's people are going to react to this, because there is a very interesting political alignment that happens in this entire scenario. Having said that, I think I am concerned about a couple of things. Is that how the Democratic Party has taken a vote bank politics, and it saddens me, because they are playing exactly the same game that the Congress Party in India plays. Appeasement policy, vote bank politics, cultivating breakout groups, and always promising everybody that we will give you this free or that free in a country that taught us there is no free lunch. How is it, which category of American people are accepting? How can the Democrats also accept that argument?
See, India, unfortunately, or fortunately, actually, India is out of it.
Correct.
Unfortunately, because it suffered of it, and unfortunately, it's out of it. So, what happened to India in the 80s and the 70s, right from Indira Gandhi's age, where the leftists and the Islamic combined took over the government, affected national politics, and they were completely overrun by staged governments through Sonia Gandhi and other people. Now, equivalence of Sonia Gandhi in the US politics is Nancy Pelosi. And equivalence to the corrupt Islamic politicians which you have in India, like some other groups over there. I would not like to name Owaisi, but that's the one comes to my mind is Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar is worse than Owaisi. I have far more respect for Owaisi than Ilhan Omar and
Right.
and Rashida Tlaib. Now these are the groups who are directly working against the majority of the silent majority of Americans. Now, silent majority of Americans are simple, Christian origin people, Jewish origin people, also Hindus included now, and Buddhists. They don't speak, but they're observing. But the idea is to silence them. Idea is to curtail them because somebody wants to occupy power because someone hates white supremacists. That's what they call them. They call us racist, bigoted, and all kinds of names they call us. But because someone hates us. So therefore, in this election, there is an attempt by these leftist Islamist forces to take over USA, particularly to steal its wealth. And that they're doing because some of their ancestors or because of all the wars America led in the Middle East, to take revenge on the American people and the American state. That is their entire background. That's why they're doing it. So believe me or not, that's the only reality because I have seen these groups very closely. So it's a revenge tactic, somebody doing it based on many names. They call it progressives, liberalism, the good words, they create, just like they create the best words they use. Liberalism, equality for all, sounds very good. But if you look and little bit go behind the surface, who is behind it? And when you see the names, it will come out Antifa, Islamic, Muslims Brotherhood, all kinds of organizations. It's a very scary situation for American people.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you because what I find when I do a little bit of a deeper analysis, as a thought part of the process, I wonder why 85% of the times Indian Americans vote Democratic. It beats the hell out of me because essentially we Indians are conservative people. We like our family values. We like to look after our children. We don't tell our children to go away at 16 years of age. That's the American way. I have no problem with that, but that's not our way. We are hardworking people. We live within ourselves. We are least problematic from a law and order problem. But here is Democratic Party. अगर उनका सारांश देखेंगे आप, if you look at the निचोड़ करके देखेंगे उनकी philosophy को, it's all about unfettered immigration and giving things free. Their entire policy, all the policy implications are based on this. Now, it's a very interesting story. I don't know whether you heard about it or not. Millionaires from New York City are leaving the city. Exodus is happening. It's also happening in the middle income level. You know why? Apart from coronavirus-related disasters that New York City experienced, people like AOC made a statement that rich people of New York City must pay for the coronavirus damages to cover the budget deficit. She didn't think that they all have to do is to come to Long Island, walk across to Westchester, or drive over to New Jersey. You lost all your state revenue, city revenues. This is what the brainless people, when they get into their fancy ideas, they don't understand what they're talking about. And that's the problem with the Democratic Party, because they promise things free. They have to get the money from somewhere. So the only people available are the taxpayers. And the taxpayers have a choice to take help of tax shelters or not pay taxes somehow or the other. So it is going to hurt the country. The Democratic Party ends up hurting the country even today, if you look at it. What was Biden's and Kamala Harris's acceptance speech all about, inaugural introduction speech all about? They were talking about, we will bring back millions of jobs. But you don't understand. The jobs that are lost is not because of Trump policy. Trump created record jobs. It's because of Wuhan virus. And I think every American voter will remember that Trump is not responsible for Wuhan virus and the economic disorder that happened after that. So they have no economic policy, no business policy that has come about. Trump, on the other hand, is talking about. So share with us, how does Trump overcome the charm offensive of the Democratic Party?
I think the only way to call it appeasement politics, or politics which is built around dole-outs and freebies. I think Americans don't stand by it. It's never happened in any election that freebies have won any president in election, whether it's a Democrat or Republican. And there are many sensible Democrats I would see that who would see this charade right down there. And there might be an option for many of these Democrats who are long-time Democrats, and they've been passionately Democrats, to cross over to the Trump side. Because it seems that Trump is more Democrat than most Democrats are. Democrats have gone ultra-left. And if you look at Trump's policies have been positive about immigration, positive about taxation, low taxation. Everybody wants low taxation.
Right.
Also, Trump's policies on small governments is actually becoming appealing to most of these Democrats also, many of the Democrats also. So I think the core GOP's principles, along with the strict opposition to radical Islamic terrorism and also ultra-leftist media houses, that is going to win the day, because the American free speech does not exist. We have been quarantined by the social media giants. Nobody can speak freely, even about anything. You have Muslims can criticize Hindus and Christians, but when we talk anything about Islam or question Islam, everyone is called Islamophobe and racist, bigot, and like even the brown skins are now called racist nowadays.
Right.
So there's no sensible argument. This is not the USA that most of us came for. This is not the USA that represents why Indians or rich people came here for. This USA is looking like a third world, third-rate country today, where there is people are attacking police. Never heard of? In the name of Black Lives Matter, people are looting the stores, attacking the police. It's like a third world country. Pretty much worse than that. I think India and other countries have moved far away from that. And the political correctness is going to take this country down. So I would advise the Republicans or GOPs or Democrat and the party, Trump, to stay politically incorrect. Say what people want to hear. The Islamophobia is not silencing free speech. People are genuinely scared of Islam. That's why it's called Islamophobia. That's the actual meaning of the word. So we have to stay true to why we migrated. And if they have a problem with Hinduism, they have free right to call anything against Hinduism. I have no problem with it. Please do that. But we also have the right to criticize what is wrong in your faith or what you're trying to do in the political space. So I think if Trump administration and GOP stays politically incorrect, speak the truth, that what Americans want to hear, silent majority will vote for Trump.
And you said a couple of points which are absolutely spot on, and I totally agree with you on that, is that political correctness is the root cause of the bane of this country. And I'm very happy to hear you say that, because almost 10 to 12 years ago, in a think tank in New York City, I gave my opinion. George Bush was the president, And, he was not a charismatic president, not an inspiring president. People were asking what will happen to America. And it was think tank. I said that presidents come and go. Their policies can be changed. What is terrible, what is putting America on a wrong path is the extreme adherence to political correctness, which has a very sad, disastrous effect on the minds of the people. Because when you are politically correct, that means you become essentially dishonest. You lose the capacity to face the truth or say the truth. Yes, Sanskrit, हमारे धर्म में कहते हैं, satyam uvach priyam uvach, right? So, but you never abandon the path of truth. That's one point very important. And I totally agree with you, the element of the degradation of the American society. It is not what I came to in 1991. In the name, again, Vivekananda's statement, when you defining poison, he said anything in excess. What was sad is that today the freedoms are being taken for granted, and it is being pushed to ridiculous extent, because there is an element of Lakshman Rekha. There is a point you can't go beyond, even in your exercising your freedom. That's why there is a visual representation that you don't have a freedom of speech to shout fire in a theater. It's an old beaten example, but very relevant. So now you are having protest converted into a riot and loot, burning. That's not it. The third element that you brought about is the element of reciprocity. That was really, really important, because I have been talking about it. I have no problem if you believe Jesus is the only way. Perfectly fine. If you believe Allah is supreme, I have absolutely no problem with that. But don't tell me I'm wrong in way I practice, whether I worship Krishna or Ram or Surya Bhagwan. Don't tell me that I'm wrong in my practice. That's the important part. And if you want to build mosques, then we must demand reciprocity from our countries and our societies, that you must also welcome a temple and a mosque or a synagogue in your part of the world. Because life is about mutual respect and acceptance. If you don't have that, and that brings me to the third part, that in their presentation yesterday, Biden and Kamala Harris did not refer to Chicago violences that are going on, the black on black violence. They are not addressing the root cause of why there is so much violence and killing happening in black community. And there are very smart black people who are talking about it, and the media shuts them down. And the final point was media. Kamala Harris missed no time to say that the entire coronavirus treatment Trump was borrowing from Fox News. If you are in the media, I'm in the media. And I'm saying that Democratic Party has the privilege of ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, NPR, New York Times, WAPO, all supporting them, but they can't handle one Fox News. What is that Fox News doing right? You must tell us more about it.
I think you made many points here. I'll start with the first one, and I think about the silencing of free speech by most of these media organizations. Many of the Republican candidates can't run their campaigns on Facebook or Twitter. There were tweets removed of Trump. So deplatformization is a big problem. And also there is a concept of global jihad. So if India is suffering from global jihad, and many of these Palestinian terrorists, Hamas terrorists, Muslim Brotherhood terrorists, they are working on the global Muslim solidarity. And that's why you see a lot of movement which is funded by the intelligence agencies of Qatar, Pakistan, and also funded by donations within US by Pakistani Muslims. Now, these are the people who are creating troubles for most of the Hindus, basically. It's a Hindu hatred being talked about very openly in the Muslim circles. Now, secondly, about the black on black violence in Chicago, that has been going on for years, even when Obama was the president. And people may not like to hear that, the violence in Chicago is more than the violence in Tijuana. So
Yes,
the
I've
drug
heard about
violence
that.
in Tijuana, Mexico, and the violence in Chicago is the same. So why Tijuana is unsafe and Chicago is safe? I don't understand that. So this black on black violence is a inter-community violence, and which their community leaders have to work hard to stop it. Either remove the weapons from there, and these are all core Democrat supporters. Now, another important thing is who funded Black Lives Matter protest. All of us are stand for all lives. You know, whether it's a white dies, a brown dies, a black dies, it doesn't matter to me. Nobody should die for useless violence. And who was behind these protests? There is not a single honest report by any of the mainstream media who was behind the protest. Because the guys who were behind the protests are also, some of them are running elections. Why the protest is in Seattle so much? And why the people are so silent? Nobody's talking about it. But there should be an investigation by the Justice Department that the people behind the protests must be brought to justice. And that's where the truth is going to. It's so unfortunate to see that North America today has so less truth, particularly in the USA. You know, everything in the media which is there, it is actually polarizing everybody's mind, confusing them. Social media is even making it worse because the governments are not speaking anything. So we have to drag the foot.
I totally agree with you, because it is ridiculous that how, I mean, I have seen, you know, in India, there is a very famous journalist, and A. Ranganathan. Twitter has suspended his account because he quoted something from Sharia. The Sharia says this, and Twitter said it is sensitive information. The question then arises, but I'm quoting something in Sharia. Why? I'm not lying. I'm not cooking up the story. These kind of super nations that have, I call it the supranatural, supra artificial nations that have emerged in the form of Google, Twitter, TikTok. I mean, why should there be any issue about TikTok?
Well, last year I decided to get off of Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. I've been free of Twitter for 1 year, and I'm on Gab and Parler. So anyone wants to follow me, only on Gab and Parler.
Okay, let me know which are. I did not know. You didn't tell me that you are not on Twitter, so I still keep sending something to you. But let me know which are the other sites.
Yes.
We'll definitely check it out. The other part comes. You talk about the corporate funding. Apparently, this is the news that I heard about, is that if you go put money on Antifa and you fund them, the money goes to Democratic Party. There's a linkage established there. This takes me to our own country back home, India, because we have now seen Bangalore had a similar problem like Shaheen Bagh soon after this happened. I lived in Bangalore for 5 years. I know the city very well. I know the people, Kannadigas, very well, and they are very peace-loving people. Bangalore grew because of the seven public sector undertakings came there. And it has a really cosmopolitan image because of technology. So to have this kind of a violence, this takes me back to a conversation, a thought, that George Soros, he, at World Economic Forum, he made a statement that he was so upset with Prime Minister Modi's Hindutva agenda that he was committing $1 billion to dislodge that Modi's government. Now, $1 billion in its entirety may not mean much in a campaign scenario. But $1 billion is a guerrilla tactic, is a lot of money. And that is what worries me, that how can a private citizen in a global forum threaten a duly elected largest economy largest democracy in the world, and threaten so openly? There is no law. Is this freedom of speech? He appears to me, I mean, with due respect, the famous James Bond villain, the megalomaniac psychopath villain in James Bond movies, who wants to change the world according to his whim and fancies. Your thoughts on that, that how can the democratic movements not do something about it?
George Soros is an international joker. If you consider from the viewpoint of Japanese Prime Minister, Indian Prime Minister, Trump, and many nationalists in the US and UK, Boris Johnson, if you study these world leaders, according to them, he's a joker and he's a completely useless figure. And the intelligence agencies of these countries will take care of him. Now, who he is considered hero as? Erdogan, North Korea, China Xi Jinping, and some Pakistan. These are the people who consider him as hero. So just compare the association. Man is known by the association he keeps. So association of, and Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was taking pictures with his son just a few years back, showing proudly she's funded by George Soros. So any politicians who takes funds from George Soros, any religious group, Islamic or any other group or communist group who takes funds from George Soros is naturally going to be in the company of North Korea, Pakistan, and Qatar, Doha, Afghanistan, name it, China, Wuhan virus originator. So all these countries will think of them as allies. So people have to choose who they take money from. And as far as Bangalore violence goes, it has the same modus operandi as Shaheen Bagh and Seattle. Both same mind. The money came from abroad, paid some Muslim guys. Always the Muslim becomes the victims. Always the Muslims are the ones who are initiating there. Now you call it Islamophobe or whatever you call it, it's totally up to the audience. But the fact of the matter is, again, the Muslim group started it. On Facebook, supposedly somebody had written against Prophet Muhammad. Muslim groups write every day against Bhagwan Ram, every day, against Ram, Krishna, and other Hindu groups. Nobody is, no Hindu is coming out on the streets. So there is something wrong with the community and they have to introspect. Either they change the scriptures or they accept the law of the land. But both cannot work simultaneously. So something has to be done by their own community leaders, not by others. Or else other people are going to take other actions and it's going to hurt them badly in the long run.
That's a very good point, because eventually, as a people of aware, we deal with technology, we deal with money. Money has no religion, money has no color. It does what it's supposed to do. So it's very, very important for everyone to reflect within to bring about a change. Feedback is the only way to grow or become better. If you don't acknowledge feedback, then you don't become better. And you are absolutely right. There has to be a self-reflection. And that's how I admire a group of people which are known as ex-Muslims. They call themselves ex-Muslims. They remain under radar for their own good reasons. And they have dared to come out and step out. So that's I applaud. I'm not saying that I applaud the rebellion. I'm saying I applaud the thinking that people are willing to consider.
They are very much in public in that. I would like to correct you there. They're very much in public. They openly organize their conferences in Dallas now.
Okay. That's brilliant.
I mean, that's groups oppose them in any way, but somehow they have been brave enough. They have death threats. Can you imagine a faith where you can't even go out? You can go in this one-way street. That's the definition of a cult. Correct. One way in, no way out.
Correct. Now, I wanted to touch upon one very important concept, an event that happened today, and I saw that on the TV, that the signing of the agreement between the UAE and Israel for establishing full-fledged diplomatic relations. And in that event, there was one gentleman who said that all three faiths, Christianity, Islam, and Jewish belief, have the same origin of Abraham. Call him Ibrahim, Abraham, or Abraham, or whichever way you want to pronounce it. So these three religions must come to peace, and this is the great beginning. And it set me thinking, where does Hinduism stand in this process? So if, we are not a religion, we are a way of life. We are part of the Sanatan principles. So there are two things that I wanted to hear from you, because you have done a lot of work on this area of Hindu and Sattology and area. So we are actually the only ones standing in the way, so to say, if I may say, in the process of the world becoming Abrahamic belief. We are the only ones. However, science and technology is on our side, because if anything, any lesson that has been learned from this dreaded evil coronavirus is that nature, Mother Nature and Mother Earth has taught us that in the world, in the universe, all lives are the same. So this coronavirus taught us something very unique. It is immune from race, color, gender, rich, poor, religion. No magic miracle maker, whether from church or temple or a mosque, can say, "Main Allah ke naam pe magic karunga," or Jesus will do a miracle, or Bhagwan will do a miracle. Miracles are in their own places. But it has taught a lesson. How do we engage with the world that God is in his place, but there is truth in another place? There is one sun, there is H2O, and there is air. They are what they are.
So, number one, most of the Hindus do not understand anything. They can't even tell you the scriptures' names. They can't even tell you how many chapters in Bhagavad Gita. This is most of them.
Most of them.
Half of them fight with the remaining ones, saying that I am a Sanatani and you are a Hindu. Half of them. Both are on the wrong side. Okay. First of all, we have to drop this definition of Hinduism as a way of life. This was given by Radha Krishnan Pillai, and that is totally stupid definition. S. Radha Krishnan version of Bhagavad Gita was the biggest fraud on Hindus, and I'm very sorry any of you who have read this Bhagavad Gita. Okay, Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma or Krishna consciousness or whatever name you call it is a religion and also Varnashram system. Okay, it's a religion. Shankaracharya has declared it boldly. Let there be only one book, Bhagavad Gita. Let there be only one God, Deviki Putra Evam. Shankaracharya has said, don't accuse anyone else. Everyone follows Shankaracharya. Adi Shankaracharya. And let there be one service of Devaki Putra. It's very clearly said. And I am unashamedly telling you this, because I don't care about people's opinions. We go by the facts in the Shastra. And so Hinduism, we have to redefine it. When you are working in an Abrahamic country, which is either you are in the US or Europe or anywhere else, here it's a religion based on one book, Bhagavad Gita, and one person, which is Krishna or Ram, you can select, because Ram is also mentioned in Bhagavatam. But whatever is popular. But you cannot confuse rest of the people by saying that we have many gods. There's no many gods.
There is no many gods.
So Shastra is very clear. Ekala Ishvara Krishna Arsa Bhritya. It says, Ete Chamsa Kalapumsa Krishna Stu Bhagavan Swayam. Bhagavad Gita says, Shri Bhagavan Vach. Very clear. So we are a monotheistic faith. If you consider Bhagavad Gita as a main book. Okay, based on whatever you consider. If you consider Shiva Purana as a main book, then Shiva still remains monotheistic. If you consider Ganesh as something, Ganesh Sutra, still the main thing. Okay, so we are also the same thing. And we have one principal book which all the Hindus follow, including American Hindus follow, which is Bhagavad Gita. If you ask Tulsi Gabbard, she'll directly tell you Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And she's very popular also.
Right.
So it is Hindus' problem and Hindu leaders' problem that they don't claim their heritage as a bona fide religion. When you say a way of life can be a street on a highway. US 101 is a way of life. No, we're not that kind of unfocused and random. We have a very straight principles. When Krishna says, Sar Dharman Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Raja, one mine only, he says. So now where is the doubt left? So I think Hindus are taken for a ride due to themselves, not by others. And they have to eat the crow because they themselves have a problem in not understanding their own position. You ask a Hindu when he goes to somewhere, The moment somebody says, do you have a caste? He says, oh, get into 5-hour reply on that. Instead of that, he should say, there's no such caste system. Caste is a Portuguese word. We don't even understand what is caste.
Yeah.
So
that's such a great point that you mentioned. I mean, I think this is how everybody must come to this conclusion. And I totally am with you that if you want to, you have to self-reflect to become better. And we are ours. This is my theme. I'm a strong believer in the concept of taking responsibility for what happens to you. This is the most important lesson I have learned in my life, that everything that happens to you, you are some way or the other, whether 5% or 95%, you are responsible for that. वो कहते हैं उखल में सर दिया तो उंगल टूटेगा. So that is the way it is.
There's so much strength in Hinduism, and we are behaving like Muslims and other communities, claiming to be victim, Hindu phobia. All this is bullshit. Actually, Muslims are suffering from kafir phobia. That's their problem. It's not our problem. We are supposed to at least follow our own culture, read our own Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, Ramayana, and then respond to all these attacks in a powerful way. Not that reactive all the time, not reactive. The biggest fight in America, North America, is right now, should be against halal food.
Right.
Even the dahi you put halal stamp, Hindus cannot offer that to their own deities. That is the biggest fight. Take it on if somebody has the guts.
No, that is very important. There are many issues that we can talk about. Time prohibits us from doing all the conversation, but this is very, very important, that Hindus have to take responsibility and learn more about themselves, because we become very gullible and very accepting, very submissive. ठीक है, वैसे होने दो. Let it be, let it happen, let it be. That's what is doing. No, I'm not of the part. That's why we are talking about it.
Yes,
we want to talk about that. This is something which I began to experience in my personal life in 1991. When I came here, I realized that we have such a wonderful being, existence, which is so free. Actually, if you look at it this way, seriously speaking, Hinduism is the only democratic way of life, faith, principle in the world. Because in Christianity and Islam, you always say Jesus is the only way, Allah is supreme. There is no choice. There is no freedom. We give freedom to people. We have inbuilt freedom in our way of doing things, that pray to whoever, but accept it, learn it, and do it as what is required to be done. We immediately, हिंदी का बड़ा अच्छा शब्द है, हम अपने अस्तित्व को ही भूल जाते हैं. We are willing to let our existence, our identity be diluted. So that's the point which is very important. It's wonderful to talk with you, as it always happens. All good conversations have to come to an end. And today that conversation comes to an end. We have given our audiences a lot of points to think about, because from voting for Democrat, why? And I think if Democratic Party agenda is so anti-India that you are willing to question the legislations in India, which have been done democratically, of the largest democracy, who you call your strategic partner, but you say nothing to Pakistan, give me a break. That's where Democratic Party has lost many people. And they will continue to lose many minority voters in this particular manner. Last word.
I just want to add one last point, just one thing.
Yes.
No Indian or Hindu, actually, so I'm not talking about Indian, because there are a lot of Khalistanis also. So no Hindu should ever compare Bharat with Pakistan.
Right.
Pakistan is poorer than only, it's 1/30th the wealth of India, 1/30th.
Right, right.
It's a useless, it was a great country when it was a Hindu country, but ever since Islam took over, it has become the beggar of the world. So we should not talk about it or compare it anyway with India until it becomes part of India. That's what I was talking.
No, there is no comparison. I'm saying to the American Democratic Party that by siding with a country like that, you devalue and go down the tube with them. That's exactly your point in that matter. Yeah. So thank you, viewers, for being with us. See you next week. Thank you, Aditya ji, for being with us. It was a wonderful conversation. Namaste. And be safe, be well, and take care, and see you next week.